Hi, my name is Jonathan Bell, and I'm an assistant professor at Northeastern University, and I'm passionate about the artifact evaluation process and open science overall. I'm really happy to have this opportunity to give this discussion and serve on this panel today. So, a little bit of background first. I have a perhaps interesting but not unique perspective on artifacts, because just as I was a student writing my first papers, and joining the research community was just about the same time that artifact tracks were starting up at conferences like FSC and UPSLA. Hence, I never necessarily saw artifacts as this strange extra thing, but maybe instead as the obvious extension to papers that they are. Especially when your paper describes the implementation of a tool, like many of mine do, it would just kind of naturally follow that you should then publish that tool and have some process to ensure that it was properly archived. An artifact track. I have what may be a unique perspective, though, from having served in all capacities of the artifact evaluation process as an author at UPSLA, FSC, ECOOP, ISTA, and ICSE. I've also served as a reviewer at UPSLA, ISTA, and ICSME. And most recently, I had the experience of serving as the co-chair of the artifact evaluation track at PLDI. And overall, I feel like my observation is that our community has created some really great processes for submitting and reviewing artifacts. And it's now time to make sure that we recognize those best practices and disseminate them throughout our community, especially to authors of artifacts, so that everyone is on the same page. And a lot of this stems from personal pain that I've had maybe in the past submitting artifacts or being a reviewer or chair of an artifact track, and also from discussions with members of my community who have asked, like, why haven't you submitted artifacts, or why do you stop? And I think that a lot of the pain involved comes from a fundamental lack of clarity in what constitutes an acceptable artifact worthy of a badge, like this badge here, reusable. And I've reproduced ACM's guidelines for this badge here, and zoom in specifically to this sentence, that in particular, norms and standards of the research community for artifacts of this type are strictly adhered to. Okay, so this means that as the research community, we need to make extremely clear what those norms and standards are so that no authors or reviewers will be upset by a mismatched understanding of these norms. While it's ultimately the author's choice to submit an artifact or not, my goal is to ensure that the process is transparent and seamless as possible, and ultimately for artifact submission to become the norm. If authors perceive that the criteria for acceptance is higher than it is, like if they don't understand what those community norms are and think that those norms are set really high, then maybe they're going to be discouraged from submitting. I would like to clarify the evaluation process. My hope is to make clear what the zero overhead process is to simply achieve an artifact available badge, that is, creating an artifact, archiving it permanently and properly, be done, and also to make clear what the lightweight process is to achieve a functional or reusable badge. So, what's next? I just finished co-chairing the PLDI 2020 Artifact Evaluation Committee, and I had really lots of great lessons that I feel like I picked up from our nearby community in PL. I am planning, along with any volunteers who are interested, in condensing some of the best practices that we've seen across all of our conferences and new ideas and feedback into a SIGSOFT guide that will suggest for chairs, authors, and reviewers of artifact evaluation tracks to try to disseminate these community norms and come to the best artifact evaluation processes that we can. I'm looking for help from anyone who's interested. Looking forward to having some great discussions today at the Rose Workshop, and please feel free to reach out to me directly if you'd like to discuss this further privately. Thank you.